Comic Boom.
Hey guys, Comic Boom here to review Legion of Superheroes #1. First, I just want to say, I want to give a shout out to the guys at Weird Science DC podcast. Check out their website, Weird Science DC. They review all things DC. They also review pretty much every Marvel comic, and you can subscribe to them on Patreon. And even not on Patreon, you can just listen to their podcast as a regular member. But I would suggest paying $5 a month. Contribute to their efforts, because every week they review pretty much every single DC comic that's out there, as well as a lot of Marvel as well. But if you're a DC lover, you got to check out Weird Science DC podcast. And I'm saying that with because I listen to Weird Science DC and I do subscribe to their Patreon. And also, I did review. They asked me. I was very flattered. They asked me to review Legion of Superheroes #1 on their site, and that's exactly what I did. So check out the site. Check out my written review. I want to give a video review as well right now for my channel here of Legion of Superheroes #1. Because it's written by Brian Bendis. We had that 2-issue Millennium series that I thought was somewhat pointless. It just followed a schizophrenic named Rose through 1,000 years, and ultimately it was very depressing because we discover that the Earth was destroyed 2 or 3 times, and then all of a sudden it ends with her meeting the Legion of Superheroes during a glorified photo session, and all the teenagers are smiling, and so we're led to believe that after a disastrous 1,000 years, the planet Earth culminates in the 31st century, where everybody is smiling and they look like they're taking a happy drug, and they're the Legion of Superheroes, and it's beautifully, again, they look fantastic, and that's it. It leads into Legion of Superheroes #1. We are now in the 31st century, and so what is this opening issue of Legion of Superheroes? What does it show us? I gotta say, guys, I'm positive. I've always been hit and miss with Bendis, but I want to give him some credit here. I gave on the Weird Science DC review site, I ascribed to this a 7.5 out of 10. I thought Bendis did a reasonably good job here. There are some issues with the dialogue here, but defenders of Bendis' use of dialogue, or his Bendis speak, as we 21st century comic reviewers and readers might call it, his use of it can be defended here in the use of what Bendis calls in story. He calls them Frickman tags, or Frickman tags, and apparently that's named after the original. Frickman is actually, I understand, has something to do with Matt Fraction. Matt Fraction, Greg Rucka, and Brian Bendis, apparently they communicate quite a bit. Matt Fraction writes Jimmy Olsen, Greg Rucka writes Lois Lane, and of course Bendis writes writes Superman Action Comics, Event Leviathan, and now Legion of Superheroes, and I'm sure I'm missing something there, Pearl and his slew of other books. In any event, they communicate a lot, and apparently it's an inside joke that now every time when you see in the Legion of Superheroes, behind each character, because they're dealing with such a large cast, Bendis is writing such a large cast, that for new readers and even for old readers, if we're not sure who a particular character is, there's a holographic image behind each of the characters that says who they are. And apparently that's something that actually exists in the 31st century, and apparently it helps with communication between the various races, because the 31st century is very diverse. There's a lot of diversity. There's people from different races. I believe Bendis has even done his homework. He indicated in one interview that there's 34 planets that are members of the United Planets, which of course was formed because of the idea Superboy had at the end of the Rogolzar storyline, and that created Unity Day, the first Unity Day that of course that took place in the latter half of the early beginnings of the 21st century, and that therefore John Kent, Superboy, is the inspiration for the United Planets. And 1,000 years in the future, the Legion of Superheroes are celebrating Unity Day, and in celebration of that 1,000 year anniversary, they invited Superboy into the future. So what does this issue tell us? It's interesting because it starts off with Ultra Boy chasing down Mordru. Now, Mordru looks different here. Mordru, in fact, is described by Ultra Boy as a demon gangster, and Ryan Sook crafts just a gorgeous set of pages where Ultra Boy is chasing the demon gangster Mordru through the sewers of Bloodhaven, on planet Gotham. And it's interesting that Gotham is its own planet. And in any event, so they with the help of Ultra Boy has the help of Wildstar and Starman, and I forget another one, Karate Kid. How can I forget Karate Kid? He's my favorite Legionnaire. And they managed to stop Mordru from stealing an ancient artifact. And the ancient artifact is the Trident of Aquaman. Now, why is that significant? Well, here's where it gets a little funny. I always thought at the end of Millennium, when they showed this new Earth being reconstructed, because the Earth was destroyed, the Earth's been destroyed multiple times over the 1,000 years between the 21st and 31st centuries. And so all the 34 members of the United Planets are getting together to help, and they're taking the best scientific minds and they're reconstructing and they're rebuilding the planet Earth. Now, it looks a little odd. It's beautifully drawn by Ryan Sook, and I couldn't put I couldn't figure out what was odd about the reconstructed Earth. And then suddenly it became so obvious. It's missing water. I mean, the water, as we know, takes, 70 or 75% of the planet Earth is filled with water. That's what they're missing. They're missing the primary element of water. So in the 31st century, despite all their technological advancements, they're missing a key element. They're short on water. And this is where I suspect, and this is the hint where the Aquaman's trident comes into play, because Mordru wants to use the trident for obviously nefarious purposes, of which we're not sure, but Ultra Boy makes it clear that they need the artifact in order to save a planet. And of course, he's obviously referring to Earth. How can the trident of Aquaman save the Earth? Well, I would imagine it's somehow going to put water on the planet. It's the one missing ingredient to have Earth, a new Earth, bloom again. So I think that's where this first arc is headed. I predict that probably, it's a fairly easy prediction, that at the end of this first arc, the Earth is going to be vibrant and blue once again, because finally they're going to be able to get some water on the planet. In the meantime, Ryan Sook just does a beautiful job, just an incredible job, introducing us all to all the Legionnaires as they're talking. And even Brian Bendis' use of dialogue here, I think it actually works. It can be a little annoying at parts, but I'm going to cut him some slack, because this is a huge cast. And for once, when you have such a huge cast and everyone's all excited about meeting Superboy for the first time, I can be forgiving that there's going to be overlap of dialogue and repetitive dialogue. I can even see that. So I'm going to cut him some slack on that. And I really found myself smiling as I read this. This was really enjoyable. And Ryan Sook did such an amazing job coming up with reimaginings of the various characters, whether it's Saturn Girl or Ultra Boy or Karate Kid, Cosmic Boy, and Lightning Lad, and Lightning Lass, and all these different characters. And Rose does make an appearance, of course, of Rose and Thorn, who played such a major role in Millennium, in the road to the Legion in Millenniums 1 and 2. As disappointing as that was, Rose here makes a very modest appearance, a very brief appearance here, and I'm glad. Rose is not an interesting character, and I would much prefer that there be less focus on Rose, because she's just uninteresting. I just don't care about Rose, although I suspect we're going to be hearing more of her. But in any event, this is a lot of fun. This was a great opening issue. You don't need to know a lot about the Legion of Superheroes to enjoy it. It whets the appetite. The art's fantastic. I'm asking myself a lot of questions. What's the secrets of planet Gotham? The sewers of Bloodhaven seems rather an odd name. All of Metropolis, the entire city of Metropolis, is in fact Legionnaire headquarters. So it's the entire city is in fact the headquarters for the Legionnaires. It was also unclear to me how many members of the Legionnaires there were. If that was stated in the opening issue, I missed it. I'm not sure how many members of the Legionnaires there are, but you really get a sense of the diversity, and that's what I love about it. And the redesign of the costumes and the characters, just great. Colossal Boy looks great. Starman looks great. I remember Queen Projecta. I'm pretty sure I saw her there as well. There's all kinds of little, I'm looking at all the pictures, and because I collected, my first comic book was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes back in the mid-1970s, and I got so many of so many of my older comic books are Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. So I'm having a ball here. I'm much more excited about this incarnation under Bendis of the Legion of Superheroes than I actually was when Mark Waid did attempted it in '94 and 2004. I'm more excited than in 2007. That incarnation, there was even a new 52 incarnation of the Legion of Superheroes in 2011. And then, of course, we had Saturn Girl, that incarnation of Saturn Girl disappearing in the pages of Doomsday Clock number 11 to make way for this new reimagining of the Legion of Superheroes under Bendis. With all the delays of Doomsday Clock, I think it's clear we can sort of forget about whatever incarnation of Saturn Girl that was in Doomsday Clock. This is clearly a different and a reimagining of it. So despite some issues that DC readers might have with how Saturn Girl was handled in Doomsday Clock, I think, quite frankly, it's easier to just forget about that and enjoy this reimagining by Bendis for what it is. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I love the callback to Aquaman. I love the callback to the 21st century. Again, and I even love the callback of the Frickman tags, where you can get a handle on who the characters are. And Saturn Girl says something very interesting about the Frickman tag. She says it actually helps break down intellectual barriers between people. So when you talk to somebody in the 31st century, you automatically know who they are because the holographic Frickman tag appears, so you know who you're talking to. And apparently it breaks down intellectual barriers as well. I'm not sure how it does that. Does that mean that if you're an idiot and you talk to everyone, you're going to be on the same level intellectually as them because they got a Frickman tag? It seemed a little odd to me because but I got the impression that it sort of levels the playing field a little bit. And it seems like something that was actually it's even a little bit disturbing when you think about it, that if it actually impacts communication and reduces stress levels, as she said, isn't that a little bit Big Brother-like? I think there's a lot of potential for corruption there. It seems to me that whoever controls the Frickman tags can have more power and influence over the population. It's sort of like the future version of Mark Zuckerberg. You know, instead of Facebook, you got the Frickman tag. He who controls the Frickman tag controls society. So I think that that's a potential storyline there that's just waiting to happen because I think it has disturbing political and social ramifications for the United Planets in the 31st century. But maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I like the idea. The ideas that are inspired by this opening issue. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas that are there, and I'm really looking forward to see where this goes. Now, I've been hyped up in the past about Brian Bendis' opening issues, only to be left very disappointed. I'm hoping it's going to be different this time around. If you guys want to read my written review, check out Weird Science Thesis website, and also you should be checking out Weird Science Thesis website and their podcast every week anyway, because it's a great site and it's a great podcast. Jim and Eric and the Get Fresh crew there review all kinds of comic books, and they do a stand-up job. You don't always have to agree with them, but I guarantee you that you'll at least always get a good laugh out of it because they're good fun guys. So, guys, tell me what you think of Legion of Superheroes #1. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. Check out Weird Science DC podcast and their website. And hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter. And until next time, Comic Boom out.